So my family and I, we hang out and eat outside as much as we can, which is awesome. But we came across an issue with that, and that's having table space for where we're hanging out at. So with this afternoon build, we'll be coming up with a solution for that. This super easy side table is probably one of the handiest builds that I've made so far. No more looking for a place to set your drink or paper plates folding up and food spilling all over your lap. You simply pull around one of your side tables and use it for anything that you like. So yes, I built this for an outdoor project, but honestly, these would also be perfect for indoor use. So if you're looking for something that could slide underneath of your sofa and be used for drinks, laptops, or again, anything else that you'd like, this is it. So as you've seen, this thing can be used for a ton of different things. And the best part, you can build this in an afternoon. Let's hop into it. So another cool thing about this little side table is it's a one board build. And since I want this table to be stable, I'm a poet and didn't know it, I'm going to be using a 1-inch deck board for this. Now you can use any type of material that you'd like for this, but deck boards are pretty cheap and I'm going to be making a lot of these things. So deck boards are typically 5.5 inches wide and they're different lengths. For this build, I'll use a 10-foot deck board. And the first thing I'm going to do is to cut this at 50 inches long. This is going to make handling the material a lot easier, and it's also going to help to reduce any type of bow that the material may have. So once I have that cut, set over to the table saw. Next, we're going to need to rip this material down into 2.5-inch strips. And the first thing that I want to do is to remove these rounded edges. It's kind of like a 2x4, how everything has rounded edges. Yeah, I'm going to cut that off. So I'm going to set my table saw fence for 5.25 and knock one edge off of each one of these boards. Another great thing about this build is we're using all the same dimension of material. So in this case, it's going to be 1 inch by 2.5 inches wide. Now that I have one flat edge on each of my boards, I'm going to set my fence at 2.5 inches wide and rip my material down with the flat edge of the board against the fence. Alright, so now I have my material ripped down. And just a note, yeah, these deck boards are supposed to be 5.5 inches wide, but they're not always 5.5 inches wide. So go ahead and measure before you start ripping. I know I said earlier that I'm going to set my fence to 5.25 to rip down my first edge, but just to be on the safe side, go ahead and start out at 5 3/8. Now that I have my material ripped down, let's go ahead and make some cuts. And this is the type of build that you can go ahead and cut all of your material up front. Using my 50-inch boards, I'm going to cut 2 pieces that are 19 inches long, 2 that are 17.5 inches long, and 2 that are 13 inches long. Then with our remaining material, we'll be needing 1 more board that is 17.5 inches long, 5 more that are 13 inches long, and 2 that are 14 inches long. And that's another great thing about this build. We're going to be using butt joints for everything, and it still looks awesome. Alright, so now that we have our parts cut, let's go ahead and give everything a quick sanding, and then I'm going to go ahead and put a stain on mine. Now the reason why I'm staining mine now, even though I know I'm going to have some touch-up staining whenever I'm done, is the fact that once we assemble this top, this is a prototype that I had made, it's going to be really hard to stain in between these 1/2-inch gaps. It's completely up to you on how you do this, but I'm going to choose the easy way. Now if you're using a material that doesn't need a stain or a protective coating, then you'll just be doing some basic sanding. Alright, so now that we have everything all stained up the way that we want it, and I actually use this kind of gray color just because it matches my outdoor furniture, let's go ahead and start putting this together. We're going to start by assembling our tabletop, and then we'll add the leg supports. So for the tabletop itself, we'll be needing all of our 13-inch pieces, as well as 2 of our 17.5-inch boards. I'm just going to set the rest of these parts aside for now. Our 2 17.5-inch boards will actually be screwing into these. So that leaves our 13-inch boards. At the end of each one of these 13-inch boards, we're going to put some pocket holes. In order to hide all of the screws for this entire build, I'm going to be using pocket holes to attach everything. For these 13-inch boards, I'll be needing 2 pocket holes on each end. Just make sure to set your bit at 1 inch. Now the prototype that I made, I kind of did a mix of both. I used pocket holes for the leg assembly, but the top I actually screwed in from the edges using deck screws. And I really didn't like the way that all of those screws were exposed, so pocket holes it is. Alright, so now that we have pocket holes on each end of our 13-inch boards, let's go ahead and assemble the tabletop. So to connect these boards, I'm going to be using some 1 1/4 exterior wood glue. 1.25 inch exterior wood glue. Okay, so let me try this again. So to connect these boards, I'm going to be using 1.25 inch exterior pocket hole screws, and just for some extra support, extra measure here, some exterior wood glue. And another tip is to wait for your stain to completely dry, or you end up with Smurf hands. So we're going to start off with 2 of our 17-inch boards. This is going to be the outside of our tabletop. Then we'll take one of our 13-inch boards, pocket holes facing in, and another one on the opposite side. Essentially, this is going to be the frame of our tabletop. Now let's just put this baby together with our 1.25 inch pocket hole glue, or whatever I said. So before I actually connect these, I just want to bring this to some people's attention. Let me show you what the screw is going to do as it comes out. You can see as this pocket hole screw, and I just have it barely in there, as it comes out, it's going at an angle. All right, so the way that we're putting this together, like this, that angle is actually going out towards this outer edge, which is kind of the weak connection. The correct way to put in pocket hole screws would be this way, with that going into the material. So that's one of the reasons why I'm adding wood glue to this, because pocket hole screws are designed to be used without wood glue. So the wood glue is going to be my extra support for actually installing this backwards. But if I installed these the correct way, our pocket holes would be seen all around this build. So yes, you could add plugs to these or add some extra wood glue. It's up to you. I just wanted you to know the correct way to install pocket hole screws. That way I'm not teaching you bad habits that stick. So keep in mind that whenever you're laying your boards out, that all of these will have a front and a back. Honestly, I should have told you this before you cut your pocket holes, but put the pocket holes in the sides that you do not want seen, or the nicer side facing out. All right, and this is what we end up with. This is going to be the frame of our table. So now you just need to decide which side that you want as the top of your table, because these edges will be exposed, and which side that you want for the bottom. I'm going to put this side as my bottom. So the side that's facing the table will actually be the tabletop. So now let's add in the rest of our tabletop strips. And for spacing, 1/2 inch spacing in between, scrap wood. And yes, these are fence pickets. We're going to first just lay this out just to see how it's going to all fit. So actually, this fits pretty perfect. That's what it'll eventually look like. Pretty cool. Let's get these attached. But since I'm going to be adding some wood glue to this, probably going to get some glue on the edges here. We can wipe that off after. Kind of push some of this glue into the end grains. Okay, the end grain of the wood will soak up more. So if it's soaking it up really quick, you may have to let it set for a moment and then add some more. Whenever I first started out, I kind of underrated wood glue. A lot of my projects, I would just skip that and just use screws, nails, whatever. But during the time of working in my family's flooring mill, one of my jobs was to make stair treads. These were big, heavy-duty 1.25 inch treads made out of antique oak. So whenever I was learning how to make these, and they told me that they were only being held together with wood glue, that really opened my eyes to the strength of the glue. Just by gluing something like those treads, it could be used and abused for 100 years without ever having to worry about it coming apart. And honestly, if you think about it, if you've ever taken apart anything that has been properly glued, it will not break at the glue joint. It will break the material off before it actually breaks that bond. Pretty cool. And for those of you that find it interesting that I grew up or worked in a sawmill and have other questions, drop them down into the comments. I think I'm going to start telling some of my personal story during the repetitive parts of these builds. And let me tell you now, I have a lot of interesting stories. So now that we have tabletop slats installed, and voila. Nice professional looking top. Pretty cool. Let's put the rest of this together. All right, so now that our top is all put together, Looks really good. I like this color. This is all the parts that we have left. Like I said at the beginning, this is a super easy build. So we have our two 19-inch boards, our two 14-inch boards, and one more of these 17.5. Let's go ahead and put pocket hole screws on both sides of our 19-inch boards, pocket hole screws on one side of our 14-inch board, and we'll leave this 17.5-inch board pocket hole free. Let's get that knocked out and then we'll put this together. Keep in mind that put your pocket holes in the side that you do not want seen. So now we have our 19-inch boards with pocket holes on both sides, and then we have our 14-inch boards with just pocket holes on one side. I'm going to pair these together and put them together. And these are going to be assembled from the edges. So just like this. And honestly, just to be on the safe side, if you decide to stain your material, go ahead and wait to stain the ends until everything is put together. That way any end that you're going to be adding glue to will have a stronger bond. Right, so now that we have both of our legs made, let's just connect these two. Ew, I messed up. Okay, you notice how you don't see any pocket holes and they're both facing the same direction? That shouldn't be like that. So now if I go to connect these two, just like this, you have a nice clean side, but check this one out. If you was to turn this around, pocket holes. So what I did was put this on the wrong side. I should have put this board on that side, then I would have put the pocket holes on the inside. So let me take this apart and redo it. So yeah, happens to all of us. And I'm glad that I caught that before the glue dried, or I'd be making new parts. All right, super easy fix. Now that we have our two legs, let's go ahead and connect those. That's where this last 17.5-inch strip is going to come in. And we'll just connect it right to the front. All right, so we have our leg assembly and we have our tabletop. Now we just need to put these two together. On this leg assembly, another option to really strengthen this up is to tie the back end with another board. On my prototype, I did not do that, and it works out great because you can actually flip it around, slide it over your legs, and say if you're wanting to grab out on some supper outside. But it's completely up to you. Once this wood glue dries, it should be plenty. If you have the extra material, go for it. But the last step in assembling this is just going to be to turn our little tabletop upside down. Then we're going to be attaching this to the back. So if you have a preference on what you want your back to be, find it now. Just like that, we now have a super cool little table. All right, so I really love these things. The wife, the kids, everyone loves these. This is the prototype that I was talking about, just in natural. See how I put the screws in through the front like this? Not a big fan of that. One thing that I may do to this, just to strengthen this up a bit, which, like I said, once this wood glue dries, I mean, it's sturdy. You could use a counter board at the top of this, maybe install a 3-inch screw through this board, and it would add a ton of extra support. Again, that's completely up to you. If you're going to be filling these pocket holes with plugs or dowel, then you might as well do it anyway. But overall, super happy with this build, super happy with this color. Now I just have to make some more because requests are coming in. So you've just seen how easy that it would be to make something awesome using common tools and common materials just in a single afternoon. So honestly, we can all spare an afternoon from time to time, and you probably need it for your sanity. So No more excuses. Get up, get out, and get your make on. Imagine taking a pile of wood and turning it into something amazing. Now, imagine doing that without years of frustration. You do not need a fancy workshop, expensive tools, or years of experience. With Woodworking Kickstart, you'll build confidence and real skills in no time. So you can spend years making mistakes and learning the hard way like I did, or you can start building with confidence today. So join me in Woodworking Kickstart and let's get your journey started.